Armor Wars will play with a lot with the fact that Tony is out of the picture, with his mark being demonstrated in different ways. A heist for his technology could prove vital to some villains, and superheroes rising to the task and having their say in everything. A cameo from Riri Williams Ironheart is also on the table, especially if Justin Hammer decides to meddle with the wider MCU moving forward. Disney's Investor Day back in 2020, among many other projects from Marvel Studios, announced the anticipated Armor Wars series, which will be coming to Disney Plus in the near future. A story that will adapt the Marvel Comics storyline titled Armor Wars, with a little change up in the MCU, as some details, including the death of Tony Stark, will factor in how the whole storyline will progress throughout the series, with those changes actually affecting the entire series, the fans, and the wider MCU in a completely different way moving forward. And after the first season of the TV show ends, the events of Avengers Endgame left us in an MCU without Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, who was actually the one to start everything. However, he will still be present in the future of the MCU even after his death, because of his technology still being shared across the world as we speak. And it seems like it will be up to Rhodey in his War Machine suit to make things right and clean after Tony and his genius that is being used for all sorts of different causes around the world. Good, but mostly bad ones. One of the highlights of the series will probably be the way in which the TV show will tackle the story now that the hero that defined it is not present in the MCU. One thing is for sure. The question that has been looming over everyone's heads will probably be answered. Does the MCU need a new Iron Man? The exact idea of what the story of the series will explore is still unknown. However, judging by the adaptation of the comic storyline by the same name, we are going to see a lot more of Stark technology in the wrong hands and being tossed around like some toy that no kid wants. Or, in this case, that every kid wants, for their own selfish reasons. Despite the series not being so hyped as of right now, let's say compared to the likes of the Secret Invasion Disney Plus series, it will surely leave a mark for any future MCU project, with the series probably setting at least a few characters, both new and returning, that will have somewhat big roles in the events to come. We have mentioned the events of Avengers Endgame and the consequences they left us with. Well, perhaps the government, or whoever is stealing Stark's technology, will be shown doing it under the pretense of protecting against any future possible alien incursions, and them to be ready for it. And when we look at how the MCU is shaping up, the world will need that kind of protection. There is no doubt about Tony making a cameo appearance in the form of a flashback, or even a holographic video or two. And it would be a good thing for the series too, because both the fans will be more excited about the fact, and the character perfectly ties in with the events of the series, with it being probably the closest project to perfectly implement Robert Downey Jr.'s return to the MCU in some shape or form. One character that has been rumored to be returning is Justin Hammer, one of the most classic Iron Man villains both in the Marvel Comics and in the MCU. And the rumors might be true, as he is also the character who was selling Stark tech to the highest bidder in the comic storyline, with him returning to the MCU and working from behind the scenes, pulling all the strings, and probably the biggest supplier of the technology that is wanted the most right now, with him possibly taking some kind of a status as Sharon's the power broker pseudonym we came to know her to be from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series. We could also be looking at some kind of connection between the series and Scott Lang's Ant-Man, with him lending his help to Rhodey in preserving the technology he could then potentially use for the greater good in the future, maybe during the events of his third upcoming movie. The story will deviate from the one in the comics, that is certain, which could mean that Ant-Man might become one of his closest companions of Rhodey in the series, helping him along the way towards the same goal. This could go well with the main character dilemma, which almost every Disney Plus series has tackled so far. A thematic similarity we think will be at large in the series, with Rhodey working through the series on whether he is going to the job of a military man, going by the code he swore an oath to, or the job that is so much closer to the action, and the events that are changing the world by the minute. The other interesting character who has been mentioned quite a while over the last couple of months is Gwyneth Paltrow's Pepper Potts, who, after a few different decisions on whether she will return or not to the MCU, she will be back in the role, with the series, as many have speculated so far, setting her up for success and giving her an even bigger role in what is yet to come in the MCU, both as Tony's wife and Morgan's mother, and in the rescue armor suit. The thing we are most nostalgic about the Iron Man movies are the battles that both Tony and Rhodey participated in with villainous robots, fights that were filled with lots of room for explosive and aerial fights, and we think the series will feature plenty of fights featuring the same narrative, which, coincidentally, will give us many more characters to explore, even in future events of the MCU, with them shading themselves as one of the many characters in the MCU. The first character that comes to mind is probably Spy Master, who, in many ways, is the linchpin of the Armor War storyline, with Tony's discovery when questioning Force, the first one Tony catches of using his technology, leading him straight to Spy Master, the one who has been selling Stark tech to the highest bidder, and he deserves a slot in the MCU. Not only for this, but also because of his connections to the already existing ties he has with the likes of Roxxon and Justin Hammer. And while we are at Justin Hammer, we think that, as we said before, he will be the game player that the series will try to flush out, especially since Sam Rockwell's portrayal of the character was so on point, with the character also being saved even after the series season ends, and him somehow connecting to the wider MCU, maybe even changing sides in the process. We are not entirely sure. We will have to wait and see for ourselves. One of the many upcoming Marvel series includes the likes of Ironheart, with Riri Williams being the newest addition to the MCU, a character that has probably been already set up in the MCU, with her being one of those young, genius individuals that Tony Stark sponsored through his campaign of allowing the next generation to reach their full potential, and to not be grounded by the financial side of things, much like how Peter Parker was with Tony, his actual mentor along the way. Tony Stark is dead right now, but that doesn't mean Riri has already learned a few tricks from watching him, or even studying and learning from his mistakes along the way. The series will surely touch upon Riri's early beginnings of her journey, if not in the flesh, then through an Easter egg for sure, with the season setting her up for her own confirmed series to come soon, with the character probably being the closest connection of being the next Iron Man, that is, if the MCU even needs one at this point. On a related note, tell us down in the comments below, what are your thoughts on the whole Stark technology heist? Do you think Rhodey will fly solo, or some other characters will be joining him? Which classic Iron Man villain would you like to see make his debut in the series, and why? Will we see Riri Williams as Ironheart, or is it too early? But also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you would like to see more videos like this in the future. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.